Welcome back to this NPTEL course on ESD, Education for Sustainable Development. So, we are towards the end of this course. So, today we will be discussing the last topic of this course, that is sustainable happiness. So, I hope that this PPT, this last session as well as the whole course can bring you happiness with regard to sustainability. So, let us discuss some principles, some basic guidelines about sustainable happiness and how all of us we can adopt it in our lifestyle, and we can not only make ourselves happy, but also others happy. So, now let us start our discussion on sustainable happiness. As the slogan here says, always remember to be happy because you never know who is falling in love with your smile. So, that means to have a smiling face all the time, before, not just before the stranger, but also to the known persons, that in the workplace, everywhere. Just so this smile, just a smile in your face, it shows that how happy we are, not just externally, but also internally. So, now let us discuss what is this happiness all about. So, as you know, all of us in our day to day hustles, day to day activities, sometimes we get bored because of some monotonous routine work. Sometimes we get frustrated because we couldn't achieve our targets or the goals, or maybe that we are facing so many hurdles in our goals, and sometimes we get hopeless because of failure, maybe because of failure, or maybe because of some shortcomings, some time gap, and this pandemic has become it's a best example of, can say, is the true example, is the evidence of these kind of things, monotonous life, disconnected from the social relationship, or lack of communications and like face to face communication, and maybe that, yes, ecological imbalances also, that some sort of ecological imbalances. Of course, pollution has decreased to a little bit, pollution, that is impact on the climate change has reduced because of this lockdown, pollution, the environment, the air pollution has reduced, that is one thing. Of course, and vaccine is again, we are also engaged in discovering this, inventing this vaccines, that is it is an innovative solution, and we have got also very good network. We become strong in our technological support, technological self-sufficiency and network, that is also an advantage. The thing is that this pandemic, even though it is a disaster, how have we encast it, how have we leveraged it for our benefit? So, that is, it shows a kind of positive mindset, optimism, all these things. So, sustainable happiness, automatically it includes a kind of how to be happy, which will last forever, last for a longer period, it is not just temporary, but also long term happiness. So, so this is the background, the reason that most people, all of us, we are facing the same boredom, monotony, frustration, anger, hopelessness, all kinds of negative emotions, negative affect, because of the n number of changes in our social and demographical and ecological structure, environment. So, these are the reasons, and another thing, that is, therefore, all of our human needs are primarily during this kind of pandemic or the disaster phase, we can say the primarily our socio emotional needs are very strong. So, that means this during this period, as we can see, the social disconnectivity, lack of investment in social relationship, isolation, isolation, all these kind of all these kind of things are it has deprived us from the sustainable social life, social cohesiveness, social network, that is one thing. And another is also emotional health. We have also been deteriorated, affected by our emotional health, mental health, in the sense that we got disconnected, and we couldn't reciprocate, we couldn't communicate, we cannot share our thoughts and emotions. So, that is the root cause of all kinds of maybe some kind of conflict or dilemma, not just within our family, but also in the environment, in the workplace. So, because a lot of people, they have many expectations from us, and which we couldn't achieve these things, we couldn't achieve these things for them, we couldn't help them. So we couldn't fulfill our expectations from from our from our employers, from our co-workers, colleagues, and from our even from our family members. So, these are there is a socio-emotional needs have been enormous during this pandemic. So, in this context, it is not just we are not just talking about how to reduce our stress and how to update our, that means enhance our mental health, that is a coping mechanism, conflict management, to how to reduce, that means de-stress ourselves, how to maintain the work-life balance, how to adapt ourselves in the online environment, in enhancing our adaptability skill in online platform, in virtual business, virtual education, etc. But again, how can not just we can overcome all these discomforts and hurdles, etc., but again, how can we develop resilience, how can we build up resilience, how can we leverage this situation in learning new skills and competencies, enhancing our self confidence, self efficacy, self respect, and happiness all together for the future, also for the future as well. So, this sustainable happiness primarily concerns with how can we achieve the happiness, not just temporary happiness, but also long term happiness, which is sustainable in nature. So, let us see how this sustainable happiness has been defined. So, sustainable happiness can lead to a sustainable lifestyle. So, we have already discussed about sustainable consumption, sustainable lifestyle, sustainable production, all kinds of things. So, sustainable happiness automatically lead towards the more sustainable lifestyle and greater life satisfaction, and sharing the sharing the happiness among others, community well-being, and it also it also involves a kind of paradigm shift in our outlook, in our vision, in our mission. Not just about the not just about our life, but the life of the community, life of our fellow beings, life of our happiness of our co-workers. So, it is altogether thinking about the community happiness, community well-being, and it is more permanent in the sense that it has to be sustainable, in the sense that without exploiting others resources like human resources or environmental resources or financial resources, etc., without exploiting any kind of resources, how can we retain this our happiness, how can we share it, how can we sustain it over a period of time, and how can we prepare, how can we contribute significantly towards the common welfare, well-being of our fellow beings. So, across the state, across the national level, regional level, as well as the globally also. So, we have already discussed about the global citizenship. Similarly, so sustainable lifestyle, sustainable consumption, sustainable production, sustainable happiness, it will bring a paradigm shift, not just in ourselves, but in our community, in our society, everywhere. And the researcher Catherine O'Brien, she has been a propagator and advocate of this sustainable happiness. She has been continuously working on the sustainable development and how sustainable development can lead us towards the happiness, and how can we retain the happiness and make it more sustainable, and what should be the pedagogy and educational approach towards sustainable happiness. So, there are n number of theories, but I have adopted this Catherine O'Brien's theory of sustainable happiness, and Catherine O'Brien defines sustainable happiness, that sustainable happiness is the happiness that contributes to the individual, to the community, or the global well-being without exploiting the people, other people, the environment, or the future generations. So, that means without exploiting our resources, natural resources that has been kept for the future generations, environmental resources as well as the human resources, without exploiting, how can we make ourselves happy as well as the whole community happy, and it is valid, it is relevant for all the global citizens. Okay. So, now sustainable happiness and well-being, how these two concepts are very much connected. So, happiness and well-being are these two concepts are very much integral in not in building a sustainable future. That means, it is relevant in not just in the context of work life, in the context of family life, in the context of social relationship, but in the context of self sufficiency and personality development as well. So, focusing on the goal is difficult, but it is not how we wired it to think, and can lead to the distress and anxiety. So, how can we think of not just our well-being, but community well-being, and for that matter what we need to do, how can we develop the sustainable habits of mind, sustainable sustainable competencies, sustainable skills, etc. So, these are some of the things that means we have to achieve. So, that these are the 3 simple ways of sustainable happiness, as you can see. Yes, we can say relaxing our yes, relaxation technique through meditation, through yoga, through pranayam, through all kinds of things, that is the relaxation of our nervous system. Second is that be tender with yourself, that means self love, self awareness, self care, intrapersonal relationship, that establishing a bond, a strong relationship with our inner self. So, we must be very clear about our thoughts, our emotions, our likings, dislikings, strengths, weaknesses. That means we know ourselves better and we have a very good bond, very good relationship, strong bond with our inner self. So, that is called the intrapersonal intelligence. If we are very happy with ourselves, we accept ourselves with our likings and dislikings, shortcomings and weaknesses and strengths and weaknesses, everything. So, we accept ourselves, we love ourselves, we care for ourselves. So, self care also is also another aspect of happiness. So, to be tender with caring about yourself, that means our inner self. Then again is to practice happiness for other people's happiness. Yes, to make the happiness as a day to day practice, as a daily habit, as habits of mind, as an interpersonal relationship, we can say key to the interpersonal relationship. So, these are the 3 ways of happiness. Now, here I want to say happiness can be defined as in different terms, like for example, when we achieve our goal, we can say the goal achievement is equivalent to happiness. Some people say that yes, having the materialistic gains, like as per the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if we have achieved a social status, social respect, respect and a very good secure job, social status, that means we are happy. That means all these are mundane, these materialistic gains also it can lead to the happiness. But again, above that, it has the different levels, it has a different intensity and quality. So, above that, when we move above it, like for example, when we move towards the self actualization, like we think not just for ourselves, but for the society, for the people, for the community, for the country. So, then we go beyond our own benefits. So, there this kind of happiness is called the eudaimonic happiness. But when our happiness is related to our subjective experience, our desires, our goals, our needs and our fulfillment, life satisfaction, all things, these are called all the eudaimonic happiness. These are which are mundane, which are more, you can say, materialistic in nature, which are short term also, you can say short term. So, as because we we achieve certain things, we achieve the career goals, we achieve the materialistic gains, we become rich, we become, say, these are the reasons, these are the reasons of our happiness, that is called the mundane happiness, that is eudaimonic happiness. But when we move beyond, we think beyond this happiness. So, when in spite of, irrespective of our own benefits, thinking about own self and etc., when we think about the social development, community well-being, happiness of others, when we try to serve others and share our thoughts and feelings with them and try to develop their lifestyle, their standard of living, and bring happiness to them, then we become satisfied. So, all our great peoples, like great statesmen, like you can say Rabindranath Tagore, or you can say Nelson Mandela, or you can say Ramakrishna Paramahans, Vivekanand, all these people are, they think for the society, they think for the global citizens, they think for the people, they think for the world, they think for the planet, not for themselves. So, that kind of happiness is called eudaimonic happiness. Eudaimonic happiness, that means without having any personal benefit or ignoring our individual benefits and self achievement goals. When we think of going beyond our individual territory or environment and think about the common welfare, well-being of the planet, of the whole nation, of the country, of the globe, of the global planet itself. So, that is called the eudaimonic happiness. So, that is primarily related to the individuals when the individual moves towards the self-actualization stage. So, that is called the eudaimonic happiness stage, and self-actualization actually gives us that kind of, when the individual moves towards that side, it also changes our frame of mind, changes our mindset, changes our outlook, changes our paradigms, thinking paradigms. So, then we move towards the towards the eudaimonic happiness, that is serving the people, serving the community. So, so you can say, so that is why the sustainable happiness is the happiness that contributes to the individual, community or the global well-being without exploiting other people, environment or future generation. That is the standard or definition of sustainable happiness given by O'Brien. As you can see, happiness is a choice. Happiness is not the result, nothing will make you happy unless, that means sometimes what happens when we are actually truly happy, to a truly satisfied person, truly believe in eudaimonic, or it is there in our personality, in our emotional attitude, emotional trait. So, we think sometimes what happens, some people you might have observed that they become happy without any reason. For them normal life, day to day life, regular life, but even then they are very happy. Okay. So, very happy because they do not have so much of expectation, they do not aspire for achieving so higher goals. So, without any reason, with a mundane affairs, with a regular lifestyle, they become happy. So, that happiness is more sustainable. So, without having high expectation, high competition, high high that means achievement goal, or need gratification, high need, or you can see instant need gratification, they become very happy without. So, without the simple thing we can say, without any reason, if we can happy and we can make others happy. So, then this is called, you can say, eudaimonic happiness. And of course, we care for our planet, we all by serving others, by helping others, by taking care of others. So, then that gives us immense happiness. So, that is the sustainable happiness, which is also eudaimonic happiness. So, therefore, one subjective experience of happiness corresponds with a numerous positive health components. Yes, of course, health is also an important factor of our causes of our happiness, because if you have we are facing any health problems, or the illness or sickness, maybe blood pressure, high blood pressure, or poor immune system, or you can say health you can say health problems in. So, that definitely health is very much affected to our happiness and mind. So, health, a sustainable health or a happy health or good health is also one of the significant factor. So, and if it is our health is okay, then yes, this is the primary reason, primary factor of being happy. And next is our work, and next is our work life, or next is our personal thing. So, happiness also protects our heart and mind. Like that is the people you might have observed in the hospital, the patients, those who have the high willpower, and they just ignore this, they just ignores and they do not ruminate over whatever problems they are having, rather they instead of that, they think about the how quickly they can be released from the hospital, how quickly then they can join with their family members, and they plan for the future future trips, holiday things, etc., etc. So, they quickly recover and they become very happy. So, happiness protects our heart and mind, it makes us more stronger. Happiness also strengthens our immune system. Happiness combats stress, that means even if some people are they are stress resilient, that means they have very much high resilience to bear the stress and to tolerate it and to channelize it and to think of the positive solution rather than getting affected by it negatively. So, happiness combats the stress, it is like our happiness, our immune system, it is like the our defense system to combat, to fight with all kinds of the ill impact of the stress and other negative impacts, negative factors. So, happy people have the fewer aches and pains. You might have observed many people who are happy, even though they are having some or other minor problems, health issues, they ignore it, they do not care. So, that is even if everybody has some problems, it is inevitable one or other problem, but if you think of it, then we become unhappy. So, it is better to ignore it. Yes, of course, for the health factor, we need to be very careful in health, getting ourselves health checkup, regular checkup, or taking the precautionary measures, etc. That is okay. But with simple things, if you get overthink about this illness, overthink about this pain, then it becomes more. It's a you can say it's a chronic problem, it becomes a chronic problem for us. So, that is a happy people, they have the fewer aches and pains, means they ignore it, they do not take into seriousness. So, happiness combats the disease and disability also. So, you might have observed some cases, the people who are differentially able, or maybe they have some problems, disability or some kind of problems. So, they try to overcome it, like you might have observed some people having those who are physically handicapped in one or other way, they set the goals for mountaineering and they become successful in mountaineering. So, that is that it also happiness, that means because they have the willpower has helped them in, enabled them in achieving that goal. So, happiness, it is there in our thought process, it is our mind and cognition and our heart, that means in our feeling. So, emotion and cognition here are most important factor for being happy and sustaining the happiness. So, you can say, so all this, that is why in positive psychology it is said that how to develop the positive character strengths, that is the positive attributes, personality attributes, starting from our positive attitude, beliefs, values to positive behavior, positive emotions, all these things. So, sustainability, so happiness and sustainability. So, you can say happiness is the heart of the two, or what heart of who we are and what we do. Actually, our self identity, our personality, our our existence. Actually, it says that how happy we are means when we deeply contemplate on our past experience, on our present condition, or on our future aspirations or the goals, etc. When we deeply contemplate over all our lifespan, life experiences, then we think whether we are happy overall, we are happy or not, whether we are satisfied or not, and what we could have achieved, how much value we give to ourselves, our contribution, our life, or you can say our worthiness. So, happiness actually determines the individuality, the individual identity of every individual, whether they are, it depends on whether they are happy or unhappy, and how do they define and explain their experiences, how they explain their life also, and also their expectations for future. So, in overall, when they define themselves, so that also shows how happy they are. So, in consumer society, where the consumption has actually become key factor of happiness, like which is more related to the materialistic gains, money, then a good job, career, and you can say the work, privileges, all kinds of things, all the mundane things. They think that these are having these things or consuming these kinds of things, achieving these kind of things will make us happy. But this is kind of gradually, if you become over indulged in all these kinds of consumptions, that means consumer oriented behavior, then automatically we becomes obsessed with. So, we become anxious, because every time we will continue to compare ourselves with other people who are more richer than us, or who are socially more successful than us. So, that automatically it develops a kind of jealousy, enviousness, or competition in our mind, which again further makes us unhappy. So, that is being complacent, being satisfied, but but leading a worthy life, valuable life, worthy life. So, that can give us more meaning. So, here also defining the happy life means again having a more meaningful life, having a more purposeful life. You have, yes, in our traditional days, what happens, especially in the family, joint families were there, and mostly the how our parents have sacrificed their lives, their comforts, their desires, their life earning savings for the upbringing of children, or for establishing the children, etc. So, that kind of things, that is the between, even though they were not enjoying their own life, but they have they have set the purpose, like rearing up or bringing up their child to be and making them more successful in their life. It makes them more happy. Okay. So, that means, so here sacrificing your own individual needs, your aspirations, your goals, etc., for the sake of others, sake of others, so that brings a kind of eudaimonic happiness. So, you must, all of you must have watched this Bhagwan movie, how these parents, they have sacrificed their whole life, and that has made them more happier. But the moment they realize that the children, the children, their sons, they didn't care about their sacrifice, etc., then the generation gap begins. And in spite of having all well paid jobs and the modern amenities, wealth, everything, even then they are not at all happy, because they didn't care about their the sacrifice of their parents. So, that kind of is also, happiness is also in this case, its eudaimonic happiness is also related to more towards our values, our ethical standards, our universal values, global values and individual values, ethics and morality also. So that is we should not confuse a good yes, comfortable and good life, we should not confuse the good life or healthy life or comfortable life, or you can say consumer based life, that means with the you can say with the self actualized life or a really happy life. That means happiness, it is a scale, it is a level, it is a, you can say it is a framework which can moves on and on, it gradually increases. But the highest level of happiness, that in order to achieve it, that is the eudaimonic happiness, we have to attain that self actualization, the practices of self actualization and higher level of morality, ethics, values and emotional creativity. So, as you can see, these are the different labels. First is the satisfaction, then contentment, happiness, then delightfulness, then bliss. That means when you talk about Sat Chit Ananda, Sachidananda, Sat Chit Ananda, that means first is truth, then Chit is mind, and then Ananda, that is happiness. So, that means we will be able to achieve that blissful state of mind, that is the utmost level of the highest level of happiness, that is the blissful state of mind. And that and for achieving that, we need to improve our our thinking process, our cognition, our level of emotions, our all kinds of value system, morality. It is not just it's not just related to, it's not at all related to all these worldly or mundane and regular, that means materialistic based way of life. So, here again happiness, how it is related to, one is that community and environment is also there. Happiness is related to personal traits and values and moralities, etc. Happiness is also related to sustainable behavior, consumption, production. So, all these things, our sustainable behavior, sustainable lifestyle, sustainable paradigm of thought, sustainable thinking process, sustainable behavior, all these things are related to happiness, because it is the ultimate goal, ultimate outcome, learning outcome of our life, that is happiness at the end. So, that is the sustainable happiness, and how to achieve the sustainable happiness. Okay. Next you can say, so this is a pyramid, this is, you can say, this is a pyramid. First individual life, personal pleasant life at the low level, then having the good life, middle life, that is a complacent life, having all, that means there is no deprivation, there is no we are not deprived of the minimum basic level of requirements in the life, comforts in the life. Then meaningful life, when we have a higher we have set a higher goal, higher purpose and meaning for our life, and we achieve it, that is becomes a meaningful life. Like Gandhiji has brought us the freedom, that is a purpose he has set for himself and for the whole country, and that is more purposeful, more meaningful, and that is his life is more meaningful, because and his happiness is of utmost or eudaimonic happiness, because he has a great purpose in his mind for the happiness of the whole country. So, that means, so this is the kind of labels, that means the levels of happiness. So, here when we think of combining this happiness to sustainability for the present, not just for the present, but for the future, and it also emphasizes reality and mutual interdependence. So, this sustainability and happiness are mutually integrated, coupled with each other. That means sustainability leads to happiness, and happiness also brings sustainability in our behavior. So, sustainable happiness, you can say, it is a concept that can be used by the individuals to guide their actions, thoughts, decisions on a daily basis. Okay. And at the community level, you can say it reinforces the need to genuinely consider the social, the economic, the environmental indicators of well-being, so that the community happiness and well-being are sustainable, are more ensured for the future generation. So, when we talk about now the happiness, there is the gross national happiness, just like GDP, there is another gross national happiness. As per the UNESCO, gross national happiness also, it has the factors, it has a model, it has the probably 9 some factors are there, and Bhutan is like, for Bhutan is the happiest country in gross national happiness. It has the highest quotient of gross national GNH, that gross national happiness. And gross national happiness, there are certain parameters, and they meet these criteria and the parameters. Okay. So, similarly in European countries, Finland is the happiest country. Finland is the happiest country, because these people are not at all concerned about the materialistic gain or being rich or any kind of career goals or like money. They are not attracted towards the money and being rich, or like they lead a very simple life, but they believe in eco-sustainability, they believe in social relationships. So these people are very happy. So Finland also, in happiness index, Finland is the highest top ranking, first ranking country in the happiness index. Similarly, after that in Scandinavian countries are also Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and then thereafter Switzerland. Some of the countries, they are also in the this ranking order. So in Asian countries, the Bhutan is the highest is the topmost GNS, that means happiest country in terms of GNS, gross national happiness quotient. So at the both at the national level and international level also, it highlights the significance of the individuals, the community actions, because these GNAs or this community, these GNAs or the countries, our GNS index also, it shows that how happy we are, means it also determines, reflects on our behavior, how the people, how the individuals, how the citizens are behaving in such a way, how they are interacting with their environment, how they are that means how they are investing in their interpersonal relationship, social relationship, how they are resolving their social problems, how they are taking up their facing of their economic problems and enhance the economic growth and sustainability. So all these kinds, so automatically it relates to our social interactions, economic behavior and environmental relationship also. So automatically happiness. So therefore happiness and sustainability, these two are intercoupled, integrated, well integrated and interdependent in nature. So these are, you can say, the, like for example, these are the sustainable development goals that we have already discussed. The first, all these 3, 6, 4, 10, all these 10 goals are more related to human resource, that is the people. So all these that sustainable in if you can achieve all these sustainable development goals of this below lowest level of this one first level, so then we can have a very good human resource and our people become happy. So we can have a sustainable society, happy people. So thereafter, when we can achieve all these five SDGs as mentioned here, then we can have a sustainable ecology environment. So so that means our environment will be more sustainable, and so we can also establish a sustainable bonding with our environment, with our ecology. Then above all, then again these global partnership and peace and justice in the society, these two SDGs are primarily related to the spiritual growth, that is the eudaimonic happiness, the social, that means the governance, the social and community well-being, all these things. So that is why as ESD is the important factor for creating awareness among the people, etc. For sustainability. Similar global partnership is also, you can say, it's the backbone of, it's the pillar of achieving all other SDGs that we have already discussed in global partnership here. So these two things, you can say, it's more of spiritual happiness, spiritual in nature, in the sense that ultimately these two factors matter because it can when we reach to this level, and if the countries they can achieve these two SDGs above all, so that means they have already achieved all these other 15 SDGs, and ultimately they are very happy because they serve this community with good governance, good networking, partnership, social justice, equality, everything. So now we can say the country is, or the community is a very happy country. So here happiness can be defined in this kind of hierarchy. So these are also some of the 4 levels of happiness that we can see: the immediate happiness, short term happiness, long term happiness, and enduring happiness. So enduring happiness, you can see, it's the more sustainable happiness is the, and immediate, that is instantly. You might have observed in case of the children, so when they get instantly any kind of incentive like the chocolate or the lollipop or any kind of toy, etc., they get instantly happy. So that is the immediate happiness. Short term, which stays for some time, but the duration is a small duration, short duration. So long term is for over a period of time, but enduring is that forever that happiness is that. If you have done something good for others, helping out others, that creates a kind of satisfaction which stays with us whole life, whole life. So that is so we can say so for the short term goals we say achievement, and for the long term we say the contribution, our significant contribution towards an organization, towards a society, towards the institution, etc. But when ultimate good, we have done something universally good, that is which is enduring, sustainable, or forever, eternal good, then it becomes. So, these are the 4 levels of happiness, and you can say these are the Maslow's hierarchy theories of theory of hierarchies of human needs, as we can already discuss: physical needs, safety need, love and belongingness, then self esteem. Esteem is related to achievement, mastery, status, all these things, and above all this is the self actualization. And above self actualization is also another level is there, that is called the transcendental, that means beyond this life. So, when we go to the upper level of spirituality, spiritual growth, we believe in the transcendence, means if that means in our karma. So, our karma are our so values beyond this life, that means when we want thinking of beyond this life, that is transcendental life. So, that is also that transcendental happiness can also be brought transcendental through this enduring, or the doing something universally good, or enduring on that means eternal. It can also give us eternal happiness, doing something significantly good for the humanity and the universe. So, now the things, these are the same things. So, these the ladders, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, human needs, these are the levels, and what are the things, the activities related to this, physiological things, activities, and the safety working conditions, workplace, happy workplace, benefits, job security, these are related to our this level of human needs. Social, that is working relationship, professional association, belongingness, love, etc. These are the social needs, and how these are being fulfilled in these activities. Then esteem needs, self respect, prestige, status that we get from our promotions, in our prestige, social social status, recognitions, acknowledgement, all kinds of then rewards, etc. Then self actualization is the growth, advancement and creativity. Not just the individuals at the individual level, but its individuals contribution towards the community, and even also accepting the challenging job, setting the higher goals for the community, for the life, advancement in knowledge and achievement, all kinds of this is self actualization. There is also beyond self actualization, that is also another thing, another stage is that is the transcendental, which have been added later on. Thank you very much.